Hi there, and welcome to this webinar here on apprenticeship incentives for employers, specifically in Q1 2022. So we're looking at the next year ahead. Um, so my name's Ben Newbold, Managing Director of Velocity Academy, and we're going to look at the year ahead in terms of how you could look to utilise apprenticeship provision to look to increase your efficiencies and also make the use out of what incentives are around for putting your staff onto learning programs. So we're just going to flick on to the next slide. So a little bit of an introduction about myself. So as I've already mentioned, Managing Director of Velocity Academy, I've worked in funded training for over 10 years across a variety of different training sectors and funded provisions as well. So hopefully I can look to utilize a little bit of experience and give you an insight into how you can have a look at the funding available and the incentives available, because this is kind of like a time like no other. There is a really big pot of incentive funding available for employers to look to utilize in order to train and reskill their staff members. Um, Obviously, the COVID-19 pandemic has had a say in that. There's a lot of people out of work at the minute, and a lot of people that do need retraining and reskilling, especially as we're moving and accelerating into a more digital, modern work environment. So, so yeah, we'll look no further. We'll have a look at what is available and how you can look to capitalize on it at the moment as an employer. So, what we're going to run through in this webinar are these bullet points here. So, we have apprenticeship incentives available for employers, when you will be paid these incentives, what programs of learning that are available for these incentives, eligibility from an employer's and an apprentice's point of view, what you can use your incentive payment for, and also how to apply for the incentives as well. So that's what we're going to look to cover within the different segments of this webinar. So the first section that we're going to look at are apprenticeship incentives available for employers. Now, just before I kind of run into this first section, I just want to kind of vocalize kind of like a thought and an opinion in and around this. So when you read the word apprenticeships, don't always think that this has to be a school leaver. It has to be somebody aged between 16 to 18, entry level into an organization. I'll just give you an example. Myself, as through what I do, I educate myself via apprenticeships. I educate myself and using the apprenticeship provision and apprenticeship funding as a vehicle to leverage the finances needed for that education. Example, data analytics, right? So data analytics is a £15,000 qualification. You can get that funded via an apprenticeship as opposed to paying that out of your own pocket or going to university and having to repay that amount after a given threshold that you go over on your payroll. Now, data analytics, yes, that you could look at that. Yes, that could be an entry level apprenticeship, but it's a level 4 apprenticeship, and it is also a very te technical apprenticeship, should I say. So you wouldn't necessarily see a lot of new hires going onto a data analytical learning program. Operations manager, which is the level 5 first 2 years, sorry, of a degree equivalent. So operations manager apprenticeship program isn't leveraged at school leavers because if you imagine an operations manager, you are a middle line manager. You are reporting directly to either like a business owner because you are running a department, you are running a segment of an organization. So these learning programs, the higher level learning programs, are leveraged more to people that are within their job role already and maybe have been for a good amount of years. Because just because you find yourself into a managerial job position doesn't mean that you know how to be a good manager. And in the way in how workplace culture and how organizations have adapted and changed over the last couple years, there's a lot to learn in that. So there is a big transitional period. There's a whole new syllabus. The curriculum's been thrown out the window. A new one's been written up in terms of management and how you can look to develop yourself. So apprenticeship incentives, don't read this and think this has to be for entry-level staff. Apprenticeships can be utilized by chief executives, by a board of directors, by middle line managers. There are a number of people within an organization that can utilize apprenticeship learning programs to look to further their education and development. So moving into this then, so what is available? So apprenticeship incentives that are available for employers. So in the year ahead, from the 11th of January 2022, employers can apply for a payment of £3,000 for new apprentices or staff members with an employment start date from the 1st of October 2021 to the 31st of January 2022. So to kind of put that as a summary, if you've hired anybody from October 2021 to the end of January 2022, you can apply for £3,000 incentives just for putting them onto a learning program. And you can apply for that from the 11th of January. That's what that first bullet point is meaning. So for apprentices with an employment start date from the 1st of October 2021 to the 31st of January 2022, you can apply for that from the 11th of January, and the application deadline for that is the 15th of May 2022. So you've got that window from January to May to get your applications in order to claim the £3,000 incentive per staff member for putting them onto a apprenticeship learning program. Albeit, remember, they have to be a new hire from the 1st of October to the 31st of January. For apprentices with an employment start date from the 1st of April to the 30th of September 2021, the applications are now unfortunately closed on this. So there was a run of these incentives earlier on in 2021. However, these have now closed as the new window for apprenticeship incentives has opened. So new starts in your organization from the 1st of October to the 31st of January, if they go into an apprenticeship learning program in whatever field that they want to, you will be eligible for £3,000 cash from the Education and Skills Funding Agency. So they are the apprenticeships available. And there are a few caveats to that. So if the individual is aged 16 to 18, it's no longer £3,000, you get an extra £1,000 for that. So it's £4,000 cash incentive that you would get for putting a 16 to 18 new hire on an apprenticeship program. However, if they're age 19 plus with no upper age limit, you will get the £3,000 incentive. So that's just the caveat. If they're 16 to 18, you get an extra £1,000, whereas if they are 19 plus, it is just the £3,000 as mandated. So when will you be paid this incentive? So to be eligible, your apprentice must complete at least a minimum of 90 days of their apprenticeship, and you will get your first payment of this. And then you get the rest of the payment at 365 days of their apprenticeship payment. So to give you an example, the £3,000, let's say we've got a 19 plus individual that is on an apprenticeship learning program, 50% of that £3,000, so £1,500, will be paid at 90 days of their apprenticeship. So once they get into the 90 days length of term within their apprenticeship learning program, you will get £1,500 from the ESFA into your business account. When they get to a year, so when they get to 365 days of their apprenticeship program, you then get the remaining 50% incentive. Now, the reason they do this, as you can probably obviously tell, is that you are not signing all of your staff members up to an apprenticeship learning program, getting £3,000 cash incentive straight off the bat, and then taking them off straight away. So it's there to leverage and to also kind of commit the apprentice to completing the learning program, and to also entice the employer to allow them to do it as well. So once the apprenticeship information is checked, the ESFA will then process the payments, and the payments will be made on the 14th day of the month, and can take up to 3 days for the payments to reach your account. So how these payments are distributed to organizations, and we talk about like you need to apply for the incentive and get the apprentice onto the apprenticeship learning program. This is all done through a platform called the Digital Apprenticeship Service. I have a slide later on in this deck that I will take you through, and I'll show you what the Digital Apprenticeship Service is, because now it is all online. So for example, the training provider is no longer distributing the payments out to the employer. The payments are coming directly from the ESFA into the employer's bank account via this Digital Apprenticeship Service platform. So that moves us on to our next segment, which is programs of learning available. So believe it or not, there are actually, as of today, I did a quick check before jumping on here, there are 759 different learning programs that are available that can be financed via apprenticeship provision. And that's, as what I try and tell people, apprenticeships are a vehicle to finance education. You can finance a degree level program via an apprenticeship without having debt to repay back as if you would go to university. I'll give you an example of that. So you could study to be a solicitor via a level 7 apprenticeship program. If you were to go to university and do that, you would have over excess of £55,000 worth of debt to repay back. If you do it via an apprenticeship, you would be employed within a solicitor firm. You would have all of that work-based experience, plus also gaining your education via your solicitor degree, your level 7 apprenticeship program that you're doing. And by the end of your 4 years, you'll have 4 years work experience, you'll have no debt, and you will also have a degree. Whereas when you go to university, you don't have that work experience, you do have the debt, but you've also got the degree. So that is an example of how you could finance higher level education via apprenticeship programs and offset it against going to university. And again, for adult learners, when you get into working life, you may have a mortgage to pay, you may have a family. You can't all of a sudden drop everything to go to university to study higher level degrees and higher level qualifications. So apprenticeships, again, are a fantastic way of how you could finance doing that. To view all of the learning programs available, though, I have put the link here, and it's a great website. It's called the Institute for Apprenticeships, and you can search all of the 759 learning programs that are available on there via clicking on that link. And learning programs, they do range. So they range from level 2, which would be relatively entry-level apprenticeship programs, all the way up to level 7, which are the integrated degree apprenticeship programs. And you have them within all industries as well. And this can be including, but not limited to, engineering, healthcare, computing, legal, finance, business, construction. The list is endless. So there's 759 different learning programs that cover literally all of the working sectors that you can think of. Abattoir, for example, if you want to work in an abattoir, if you want to work in equine with horses, there are apprenticeship programs within these quite niche sectors as well. So yeah, they are the learning programs that are available for apprenticeship programs. And here are just a few examples of our digital apprenticeship programs that we deliver. So we don't deliver all 759 apprenticeship learning programs. We have a select few learning programs that we deliver ourselves because we have the correct adequate staff and competent staff in order to do so. So the digital apprenticeship learning programs that we deliver are network support technician, digital marketer, data technician, data analyst, and IT support technician. So you can see all of these different programs, they have a different length of term that they take. So some of them 12 months, some of them 18 months. So that's just how long the apprenticeship program would take if you were to select Velocity Academy in order to take you through your learning. And you can also see a price there as well. So this is how much those qualifications are valued at from the Institute of Apprenticeships and the ESFA. That's what they value those apprenticeship programs at. You do not pay that, but that's the value of this apprenticeship program. So, for example, if you go to university and you do a term at university, you don't think how much that course costs because you're not necessarily paying it. That's just the value that that university applies to that course. This is the same example here that we have. So again, just to reiterate, the learner does not pay this money. The employer does not pay this money. This is how much the course is valued at. So if you were to enroll onto a data analyst 18-month learning program, which is £15,000, you are not paying the £15,000. The government pays that for you. So that's where those figures come from. And these apprenticeship programs are delivered virtually. So there's no need to come into a centre. There's no need to go to a college on day release. They can be delivered virtually within the workplace and are available with the 2022 Apprenticeship Incentives as well that we've just discussed. Velocity Academy do also deliver some business learning programs as well. So we have the business administrator, the level 3 team leader and the level 3 team leader supervisor, and also the level 5 operations manager learning programs available. And again, these are delivered virtually, and also they do have the current 2022 apprenticeship incentives available for them as well. So if you have any future leaders, if you have any team leaders, if you have any operations managers, any administrators working within your organization that you've hired from the 1st of October, if you were to enroll them onto one of these learning programs, that will further develop their education and further develop their efficiencies within work, you would be also eligible for £3,000 if they're 19 plus, or £4,000 if they are 16 to 18. And is the learning program fully funded? Well, there are again some more caveats to this, and if you need more information on this in more detail, feel free to contact one of our course advisors, and we will be able to go through this eligibility in more detail. Now, the amount you get, so what that means is the amount of that £15,000 for the data analyst that you get depends on whether you pay into the apprenticeship levy or not. So if you are an employer with a wage bill of over £3 million a year, you would automatically pay an apprenticeship levy. So a certain percentage goes into the apprenticeship levy pot that can only be spent on apprenticeships. If you work in an employer that qualifies for that, they do not have to pay anything or contribute anything towards the price of their apprenticeship training. If you do not pay into the apprenticeship levy, so if you do not have a wage bill of over £3 million a year, the employer would need to contribute 5% towards the cost of training. So, for example, the £5,000 business administrator apprenticeship program, the employer would need to pay 5% of that. So they would need to pay £250, and that would be paid directly to the training provider. But just look at it this way: if you were to enroll somebody or pop them onto an apprenticeship program and they've been hired from the 1st of October, you have to pay that £250, but you're getting £3,000 in order to do so. So there is an offset there where you are still in the green when it comes to your finances. You would agree a payment schedule with your training provider for this 5%. You would pay them directly, and then the government would pay the rest. So the government would pay the rest of the 95% of the funding for the training for the employer. So next we're going to have a look at eligibility. So how are you going to be eligible for this? So it's for apprentices with an employment start date from the 1st of October to the 31st of January, and applications open on the 11th of January and close on the 15th of May. That's just reiterating a point that we've gone over already. They must also have an apprenticeship start date from the 1st of October to the 31st of March. So again, if you're If you're unsure of that, I mean, you can always look to contact Velocity Academy and we can talk through this in more detail with you. But basically, they would look to start their course, their training, either between the 1st of October to the 31st of March. That's in a nutshell what that means. The individual as well needs to have a contract of employment over the duration of the learning program. There's no need that, like, for example, they cannot have a 6-month fixed term contract, but be on an 18-month apprenticeship program. That is just ineligible. They're not going to be there for the end of it. So they need to be on a contract of employment that covers the duration of the learning program. And also, the individual cannot be in any other formal funded form of education. For example, be currently studying for a university degree or also pulling down ESF funded provision by going to college. So if they are doing an out of hours college course that is funded, that's not self funded, they unfortunately would not be eligible for one of these learning programs. So for further clarification, or if you've got any more questions on eligibility, feel free to contact one of our apprenticeship onboarding team for more information and be more than happy to help out on this. And what can you use the incentive for? So you get this £3,000, but does it come with any any handcuffs with it? Are you only restricted to what you can do with this £3,000? Well, in a nutshell, before I kind of run through what's on the slide, no, you can do what you want with it. The payment is different for apprenticeship levy funds. So if you spend it on anything to support your organisation's costs, so an example of this is you could spend it on uniforms or your apprentices' travel or their salary. So you could put that £3,000 and offset it against the salary of the individual that you've just hired. And that's a really good way of looking at it. You do not have to pay it back if you do so. So the payment is in addition to an existing £1,000 that the employer will already get if you take on an apprentice who is either age 16 to 18 or under 25 and has an education healthcare plan or has been in a care of local authority. So do you remember where I had the slide and it was you had this 16 to 18-year-olds and also the 19 plus? Well, you get an extra £1,000 for the 16 to 18-year-old, but you also get an extra £1,000 if they are under 25 and has an education, health and care plan or has been in the care of their local authority as well. This £1,000 payment will be paid to your training provider and you will receive it from them rather than the ESFA. So that is again just clarifying the difference between the £3,000 incentive and the £4,000 incentive. But in a nutshell, what can you use the incentive for? You can offset it against the salary of the individual. You could maybe look to utilize it on uniforms. You could maybe look to utilize it on hardware, computer hardware, if they need a laptop, if they need a computer screen that needs to be purchased by the organization. That money can be put towards that as well. And how do you apply? So again, earlier on in the slides, I was talking about there's an application process, and this is known as a digital apprenticeship service platform. So to receive the payment, you must submit an application for each eligible apprentice using your apprenticeship service account after the 11th of January 2022. So for example, if you were to sign somebody up now onto an apprenticeship program, you cannot apply for your incentive payment until January, although Velocity Academy will notify you and will remind you on the 11th of January that, look, you need to log back into your account and you now need to apply for this apprenticeship incentive. So a good training provider will notify you and will remind you to do so. You will need to add the apprentices to your apprenticeship service account first. There are links here that will take you to where that is. And to help ensure the application is successful, when you are creating your digital apprenticeship service account, you need to make sure that the PAYE scheme for your apprentices is the same as the PAYE scheme registered on the employer's account, and check the training provider has been given the correct national insurance number for each apprentice. And there is a big reason for that, and another good positive way as to why the digital apprenticeship service account now exists. Because years ago, you could sign anybody up to an apprenticeship learning program just via paperwork. And then the information on that paperwork would be then submitted from the training provider to the ESFA and the government. Now the employer needs to actually jump onto the digital apprenticeship services account, create a login, link their organization's PAYE scheme number up on the system. And the whole reason for that now is that it just absolutely solidifies that the apprentice or the employee must be working for that organization and on their payroll in order to do an apprenticeship program. And that is all traceable and trackable now from the ESFA and the government's point of view. They can see how many people are on your PAYE scheme, how much they're getting paid, how long they are being paid for, because again, they need to meet certain eligibility criteria, such as they need to be contracted, they can't be on a 0-hour contract getting paid £100 one week and then £1,500 the next week. They need to be on a certain minimum number of hours that they are working. And this is how the ESFA and the government are able to trace and track that now, just to ensure that their funding and their provision is being spent correctly and on actual apprenticeship learning programs. It's a great system that they have in place now. So the digital apprenticeship service account, what is it? So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to jump onto the screen share and I'm going to give you a quick walkthrough of what the digital apprenticeship service platform looks like. So if you just bear with me a quick minute, I'm just going to share my screen. And you should all be seeing this now, I believe. If we can just get the share of the screen on. But just bear with us for 1 minute. There we go. So we can now see the digital apprenticeship service. So nice and easy. All you would do, you would just type in digital apprenticeship service into your web browser, click on the link, and then you would be then taken to this page. If your organization doesn't have a digital apprenticeship service account, you can create an account nice and easily here. And on this account, it just has a few bullet points. These are the things that you are able to do on it. So you're able to get apprenticeship funding. You're able to find and save apprenticeships. You're able to find and save and manage your training providers that you're working with, because believe it or not, you can work with more than one training provider as an organization. You don't need to be married to just one training provider now. So for example, Velocity Academy, we specialize in digital and business apprenticeships. But if you have individuals that need to go onto a construction apprenticeship, you can also use a niche construction training provider to deliver that training along with the training that we would be delivering for the digital and business skills within your organization. So you can use more than one training provider now. So if anybody tells you any different, they are wrong. You can use multiple different training providers. You can recruit apprentices as well on this system, and you can add and manage apprenticeships on this system as well. So it is effectively giving the employer a good control over their apprenticeship provision now, because now apprenticeships are employer-led apprenticeships. Everything is within the employer's hand. Us as training providers, we just look to work to the brief that the employers give us. So I already have an account, so I'm just going to sign in. Just sign in really quickly here so I can give you a quick overview of what this is. So we can see here, this is a dashboard that you have for the apprenticeship, the digital apprenticeship service account. So It's broken down into different sections. So you've got home, you've got finance section, adverts, apprentices, your team, and your organizations and agreements. There's a couple notices here that are just kind of clarifying the current incentive window that we're in. So it says here, for apprentices with an employment start date from the 1st of October to the 31st of January, applications for the incentive payments open on the 11th of January and close on the 15th of May. Every time up until that deadline comes, when you log into your apprenticeship service account, you will see that notification there, just as a constant reminder of what is up and coming. Any other important notices, though, will also come up there as well. And again, if there is any update in the terms of agreements or terms of use, it will give a little action here as well. So just to scroll down, you would have your organizational name. It has an account ID on there, and then it breaks it into different sections. So you've got your apprenticeship section here. You can click onto this link and you'll be able to see your apprentices. You can click onto this link, you'll be able to see your training providers that you're working with. If you have any current adverts, you would click on that link there. So if you are looking to hire apprentices, you can look to create an advert on here, and apprentices can apply for these apprenticeship roles on your system. So it's almost like a recruitment section now that you have access to, a free service as well. You're not having to pay for this service. And if you think as well, on this apprenticeship services web account, apprentices, when they are leaving school, when they're leaving college, when they're leaving university, and they're looking to study an apprenticeship, or they're looking to get their foot onto the ladder, services such as connections, the job, so gosh, I've forgotten the name of the place now, but the job center, people working within those areas will be forwarding in these individuals to the apprenticeship services account. So you are going to get a good catchment of individuals. So school leavers, when they have careers advice at school, they're going to be forwarding them to this. When they're at college and they're getting careers advice, they're going to be forwarding them onto this. So this becomes a good talent pool that you're going to be able to place adverts on to look to hire apprentices. Also, if you want to find apprenticeship training, so if you've created one of these accounts, you've not found a training provider, and you're not quite sure of what training that you want because you're not too sure, there's 759 standards currently, so you might not, it is a little bit overwhelming. You can look to search for apprenticeships, and you can also look to find approved providers on this link here. So you can reach out and see what providers are out there in order to help with your provision and your needs. There's a finances section on here. So here you can reserve funding for apprenticeships. You can have a look at your new hire payments. So here you can have a look at what payments are coming in and what dates that you can expect these to come in, which helps out with monitoring cash flow. You can have a look at finances, so your financial transactions, and also if you are a levy payer, you can look to utilize and have a look at your finances within there. And you can, again, if you are a levy payer, or if you have had your maximum amount of apprentices available, so just as a little hint, you can only have a maximum, if you are an SME that does not have a wage bill of over £3 million, you can only have a maximum of 10 apprentices currently. So if you reach that limit of 10, you can then look to utilize some unspent levy funds from large organizations that have a wage bill of over £3 million a year that haven't been spending it. You can look to use some of their funding, and you can look at that on that transfer section there. And then you do also have an account section. So you have your organizations and agreements, your team, so people who can control this account, and you can also add and remove PAYE scheme numbers as well for your organization. And that, in a nutshell, is the apprenticeship services account. It is employer-led. It is created for employers to use. However, if you're unsure of this service, if you're not 100% on this, and you do need help, a good training provider will help you out and will know this inside out. So look to utilize your training provider. For example, at Velocity Academy, we have a team that do specialize in this platform, and that are on hand to help and guide and advise our employers on how to use it the most effectively, and how to reserve funds correctly, how to apply for the apprenticeship incentives correctly, and how to ensure that you're getting paid on time from the ESFA as well. So that is the apprenticeship service account in all of its detail. So that has taken us to the end of today's webinar. Please let me know if you've got any questions or anything that you would like to know about apprenticeships that are available, incentives that are available. Am I eligible for an incentive? If you're unsure of that, feel free. You can contact Velocity. You can go to Velocity's website. I'll just get it up here in the search bar. Oh, just log out of this. I'm in the WordPress section of it. So you can go to the Velocity Academy website. That's easily findable at velocity-pt.co.uk. We do have a contacts page where you are able to fill out a form, and one of our course advisors will be able to get in contact with you. Or alternatively, you can call one of the numbers available, or we do have our email address on here as well. And we are always happy to help out any organizations or any individuals that are wanting to enroll onto an apprenticeship program. As if you go into the apprenticeship sections and apprenticeship programs, you can also view our different apprenticeship programs that we do have available here as well, along with our short courses too. So any help, if you need any guidance at all, feel free. Velocity Academy website, utilize this contact us form, and we'll be happy to help. Okay, guys, thank you very much for watching, and we look forward to seeing you again on our next webinar.